I want to introduce my colleagues. To my right, I have Vice Chair Councilmember Andrea Boone, and to her right, Councilmember Antonio Lewis, and to my left, we have Councilmember Dustin Hillis. Can I entertain a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Lewis, a second by Councilmember Hillis. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
Thank you. And now I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Lewis, second by Hillis. Can you please open the vote?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes have been approved.
Colleagues, you've all had an opportunity to take a look at the goals and objectives for this year's City Utilities Committee. What we're going to do is we're going to ask that you all present any updates that you may have for those goals and objectives by this Friday. You can get those in by this Friday, and then we will make sure that we try to get those adopted at our next meeting, which will actually be in 3 weeks from now, because we have the 5th week in the month. So we have a couple of weeks to get those back to the committee. So, please take as much time as you can in the next couple of days to think through those so we can make sure we have a fruitful and a great year. At this time, we'll open it up for public comment.
Mr. Chair, we have one speaker, and that will be Mr. Ron Shakir.
Thank you. Mr. Shakir, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Ron Shakir. Of you talking about the agenda, this year's agenda, and I guess you at some time reviewed the, compared it with last agenda, whether or not you hit your marks. But my concern is what we actually missing our marks when we talk about historically. It used to be the process of this council that this position right now used to be right over there, but it was an open process, and that process that we would address you all, our elected officials. And there's going to be a presentation today, and whenever someone make a presentation, the citizens used to be able to inquire that presentation because it was unknown, the content of it. That made sense. Mayor Jackson and those that worked with him thought fit of that. At the end of the meeting, we would also be able to address these issues that that we had now that it had rolled out. But there's one other one that's missing. If there was legislation that was discussed before the vote, we would be able to engage that process. A few of y'all were on that, in doing that process. Let me say not a few of y'all, one of you, because it was Mr. Martin, and you worked in constituent service. You knew that process. We know historically what the process of Jim Crow is and have been, the history of it. We do not want to see that process rolled out without you, Mr. Chair, saying anything about it, because it was a cry of the African-American communities who was the most impacted by the injustices of Jim Crow. And Maynard Jackson saw fit to create the vehicle in order for citizens to be able to gauge the process of destroying or killing Jim Crow. And Mr. Hillis, you may not ask, I'm not going to say that, you probably was educated to the fact of racism and what Jim Crow stood for. But for us, any citizens in America not to know it and be sensitive not to roll back to Jim Crow, we ought to know what it looked like, what it smelled like, and what it moved like. We should not be moving today in light of displacement and gentrification that's occurring in our city and don't examine every impact. We need to answer the question, is displacement of African-American communities or communities that was discriminated because of unfair housing process, and then when it was knocked down, the freedom of movement moved throughout this here city. Now we're looking at a movement into the city with African Americans being pushed out of the city, and we have no sense of measurement. What are the vehicles that's impacting those that action?
Thank you, Mr.
And what
Shakir.
would be the
Time
impact
has
on
expired.
it? I understand that, Mr. Winston, but you ought to be aware and very sensitive of it because you know that I'm the only one who has stood up. So the fact is, we have room to push
Thank you, Mr.
and
Shakir.
examine
We have one
our
other speaker
situation.
today,
You
so-
can cut me off when you want,
Thank
but
you.
the fact is that we just saw another person came in.
Shakir, we're going to have to wrap it up. I appreciate the comments,
history is
but
what
we're
you
gonna-
ought
we're
to
gonna go to our
be
next
in
speaker
to
now.
show them.
So
Now,
thank
if
you,
you want
Mr.
to press
Shakir.
that button, you are pressing the
Mr.
button
Shakir, we're
to
gonna-
take back our voices. Now, you can do that, and y'all can sit down and be a party to it.
Thank you,
But the
Mr.
fact
Chair.
is, I would hope that it just not be a matter of semantics, that we actually have rights that are adhered to.
We appreciate it. Thank you. So next, we have one other speaker, Mr. Johnson.
Ms. Adrian Coleman.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. You have 3 minutes.
I hope you can hear me through the mask. As you know, the mayor's office has introduced a public comment period for public access television. That came as a shock to the community. I am deeply concerned, and many in the community are concerned, that we've been here, done that, and when you look at the mayor's plan, it offers up 2 public comment periods, 4 hours total, 2 hours for each meeting, for a 42-year-old institution in the city of Atlanta. In a city of $500,000, how do you engage the public in this process with so little time? Okay? So what I'm here today before City Utilities to address is several things. The committee and Atlanta City Council is a big player in this. You should be driving this. Utilities has purview over the cable franchise agreement as well as the PEG channels. So I'm here today to ask again of Atlanta City Utilities, number one, please schedule a work session. We talked about it last year. We haven't done it. That's important. Why? Because in that process, you bring in experts. You really understand what the cable franchise is, understanding the legislative framework that got us here over this 42-year time period. People TV is in 1980, the city of Atlanta established a cable access TV advisory board that oversaw the cable franchise agreement, but also in 1985, the city authorized that board, a citizen-led board appointed by the mayor and council, to create People TV, create a nonprofit to assume the operations of the public access channel. Now we're talking about an RFP to identify a nonprofit. People TV is not any nonprofit. It was created by the city to have representation across the whole of the city. So a work session, number one. Number two, what I'm asking you to consider is have People TV to come in and to find out what the current status of that organization is. I would like for Atlanta City Council to reestablish
30 seconds.
Thank you. Reestablish a citizen advisory board to assume and take the lead. If we're going to re-envision this, you have advisory boards for everything. Advisory board, a task force to create, reimagine the jail, okay? This is the public access communication system. People pay their money in. It was a public trust, as John Lewis said. So I'm asking City Council to reestablish a task force / advisory board. But back to the mayor's plan.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Time has expired.
Okay, thank you. I will be leaving some documents for you to review, and we'll pass it out for all the committee members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, from conversations, obviously our speakers today have had great interest in community media, and so we have one presentation today. Have Director of Communications, Mr. Brian Thomas, who will come today to give an update on community media and talk about some of the steps that the mayor's administration is planning to go forward with next. So thank you, Mr. Thomas, for being here today.
Perfect. Thank you, Chairman Winston. Thanks, members of the committee. So as previous speakers have mentioned, we are excited that we have last week issued a request for information. This is the start of a process to really help us reevaluate, reimagine community media, or what's commonly be called public access TV, currently hosted by People TV. This committee has worked on this issue a lot over the years. One thing that we know and that we acknowledge to the community is that the city has not done a good job, a good enough job on true public engagement when it comes to the contract awarded for management of community media. We also know that community media has changed a lot over the years since it was first envisioned, and there are a lot of other models out there around the country for what good, effective community media can be as a good resource for the community. So we have started this request for information process specifically to engage the community, to hear thoughts, ideas, complaints. We'll take them all. And so we've opened up. It's a sort of two-piece process. We have a request for information where we've put out a request for people to submit written comments. The deadline for that is February 25th. So we're hoping that people will submit their ideas to us. We're also going to be hosting 2 separate community meetings, as previously mentioned. The first is tomorrow evening, 5 o'clock here at City Hall. The next is Saturday, February 25th in the morning. Both will be held over at the Old City Council chambers. And our hope is that everyone who has an interest in the future of community media in Atlanta will come and share their thoughts, share their ideas. And that will be used to inform a new RFP that will be issued later in the year. As you know, the current operator of public access TV, that contract expires in June. There was a 1-year extension that this committee and council supported. That expires in June. So it is our hope to go through this RFP process such that by this summer, we'll know whether it's a new operator, the current operator, what the new scope of work will be. So all of this is meant to be a very inclusive public process, and we're excited to be engaged in it. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. At this time, I'll open it up for comments from my colleagues. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you for coming, and thank you to the mayor's staff for putting together this. Just to see the two dates is a big deal to me. My question is, when was the Wednesday, January 25th chosen?
When was it chosen? We chose it, well, that's a good question. We were initially trying to go for 2 Saturdays. Council chambers wasn't available, so about 2 weeks ago, we shifted to Wednesday the 25th. And we issued this RFI, I believe, last Tuesday.
When was it promoted?
I believe we started last Tuesday. I could be wrong on that. Maybe it was,
I
it was
would
last
only
Wednesday
say that
because of the King holiday, so it was
I
1
would
week
only
prior.
say that because anytime I'm doing anything, I give people more than 7 days, more than 2
Sure.
days notice. So the timing of tomorrow, I don't like the timing of tomorrow. Like myself, I won't be able to be there because I'll be hosting a job fair that I hope that most folks here be at, because we're going to hire everybody in the city of Atlanta who wants a job on Cleveland Avenue. So the timing of this first meeting, I don't similar to the public who probably just got the information last week. I just saw it today. So the timing of tomorrow is an issue I have. And so I will hope that the mayor will be open to hosting a 3rd meeting because of this timing of tomorrow.
Sure,
Thank you.
we can report back. Precisely, we want to hold 2 meetings, and there is written. We're trying to be as accessible as we can here. You know, if 4 hours isn't sufficient for people to make their views heard, we'll gladly seek more. So
I like 4 hours. I like two meetings. That's something we didn't do before. I like putting out an RFP because that means that even the nonprofit that's currently there has an opportunity to win that RFP.
Yep.
I like looking at it nationally. That means we're going to get the best product right here in the city of Atlanta.
Absolutely.
Only issue I have is the timing. I know we ain't got to rush nothing. We got a really good mayor. We don't have to rush this stuff. I think that we should look at either adding a 3rd time period or looking at tomorrow being a sample, being a test drive.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. So, Councilmember Boone.
Yes, thank you for that presentation. I would like to see a more robust community outreach engagement process. This is extremely important. I see that you only have meetings scheduled for the City of Atlanta Council chambers. As you know, parking is a challenge for many of our seniors that are really, really interested in this. So I would like for you all to go back to the table and look at how we can make this more community-oriented. 2 sessions, I saw on the internet that you did ask for feedback, which is great, but always make it accessible for those that are not technology savvy and for those folks that want to get in their cars and come look at your presentations, because City Hall, as you know, parking is difficult. It's very difficult. So let's look at a more robust community engagement process. We have until June 5th. So I'm sure any of my colleagues that would like to host one of these, let's reach out to the council. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I'll just note that June 5th is the deadline for the current end of the contract, so there has to be an extensive RFP process and council approval prior to that. So just wanting to make clear that building into that schedule, June 6th would be a new contract date, but prior to that is council approval and RFP is selection. So really, it's a robust process over these next 5 months.
But the locations, we need more
I hear you.
locations. We need more locations. We need something other than you can go on the internet and fill out a card or email us some information. We need to interface with our citizens. I would like for you all to research the historical perspective of this because it's very important to the fabric of Atlanta.
Thank you, Councilmember Boone. Councilmember Lewis.
I would just second the parking situation down here. We charge to park. And so I know I know a lot of folks, myself, had I not been a council member, I probably wouldn't drove down here and paid $5 to park at that time period. I would prefer it be at Roselle Fan, similar to the job fair that we're having tomorrow. And so thank you, Councilmember Boone, for bringing that up. But I would, even if we can comp parking, if we say, hey, if you come into this event tomorrow, you can get a sign, we can comp parking for our citizens. That'd be a good thing because parking is a real issue and that money is a thing too.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. So obviously, you've kind of heard from my colleagues about, doing everything we can to just make sure that the process is more inclusive and more transparent in terms of making sure we're getting information out there. I would just add to myself, I think it's important to maybe kind of clearly articulate the difference between the RFI and RFP process so that people understand that for the record.
Absolutely. So the RFI is really supposed to inform us. It's supposed to be an educational process, both for the community, but really for the city as well. We want to hear the historical perspectives. We want to hear best practices around the country. So the RFI is really an open process that will be used to design a new scope of work that will go into an RFP. An RFP is where we actually go in and we seek out, hey, who are the nonprofits out there that might be interested in doing this? The current operator, other potential operators, what would be our expectation that they bring to the table in terms of community engagement, in terms of technology, in terms of financial resources, et cetera. So that's when we would actually be seeking out a new vendor. I think in the past, we have skipped this first step and moved to the second. We, being the city, have moved to that second step and sort of dropped an RFP based on all the great things that we know and we have researched that hasn't been as informed by the community. So our goal here is to use this RFI process, really do engage the community. To Council Members Lewis and Boone, this is exactly our intent. As inclusive and transparent as we can be, we want to be accessible. That's why we've done this, we share the same goals there. So those are the processes. The RFP is obviously a little bit more of a structured process. It's a procurement process, and so once that RFP is out, it sort of limits the conversation that can happen for fairness, for legal reasons. So the RFI process, it was really important to do that first and to get that information so that when we put out the RFP, it's going to be the strongest that it can be, that's going to be best informed by the community and best informed by best practices out there.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if it was explained where potential operators can actually go to receive any additional resources or information they can to be a part of the process.
So atlantaga.gov/community media, we've hosted the full RFI there, the information about the public meetings. We've also posted some of the historical materials. There's obviously a lot here. So we'd encourage everyone to visit that website, atlantaga.gov/community media.
Thank you.
Additional comment from Councilmember Boone.
Yes, I see that the comments are due by February 25th. Let's make sure that that is crystal clear. Reach out to the faith-based community, our MPU leaders, and let them know that comments are due by February 25th.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that either, so I will let my constituency know as well.
Great. We have also been promoting this on the city's social media accounts. Would welcome council members to do the same.
What about Cable 26? I
Sure.
hear you when you say social media. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's great. That's great. But the seniors,
Yep.
need to know, they need to understand. We have an Everbridge program that we work with, folks that are not on social media, and a lot of folks that are not on social media are particularly interested in this because of the historical perspective. So let's make sure that we are touching those folks too as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from my colleagues? Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I just want to commend you all, for tackling an issue that obviously is near and dear to many people who are concerned about community media, and looking forward to, the sessions, and hopefully we can move this forward this year. So thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, we will sound the items for first read.
Section H, ordinance for first reading. Item number 1, 23-01064, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee to ratify services rendered in connection with Agreement FC-10244A, annual contract for stormwater upgrade and repair services, beginning February 6, 2023, until the Fourth Amendment is executed, and to authorize the mayor as designee to exercise the Fourth Amendment to the agreement on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management to extend the term of the agreement on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 6 months, retroactively effective from February 6, 2023 through August 6, 2023, in accordance with Section 2-1163, subsection C, Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein, and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Now for our regular agenda, ordinances for second reading.
Item number 2, 23-01017, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the FY 2023 Water and Wastewater Renewal and Extension Fund budget in the amount of $3,689,092.00, to transfer funds from watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the Greens Ferry floodplain and stream restoration project, and for other purposes.
Thank you. DC Mahoya.
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the council. My name is Alex Mahajer with the Office of the Watershed Protection. This is to authorize transfer of funds for the construction of Greens Ferry stream and floodplain restoration project. This project is an 11-acre site along Troy Street Northwest and Joseph E. Boone Boulevard Northwest in the historic Hunter Hill neighborhood within the Proctor Creek watershed, Council District 3. This is located in a previously combined sewer basin within the 100-year floodplain. The creek has experienced extremely high flow volumes and velocities during various rain events. The project will restore the natural floodplain, stream channel, and riparian buffer on this overgrown, degraded, and channelized section of the Proctor Creek, and Greens Ferry tributary, which is more than 1,500 linear feet, and will provide for more than 5 million gallons of stormwater storage capacity to reduce localized flooding. It will also create the first publicly accessible green space for the Hunter Hill neighborhood. This is one of the several green infrastructure projects being funded in parts by the Innovative Environmental Impact Bond that aims to improve the health and resilience of West Side communities. To fulfill the obligations set forth in the bond agreement and its commitment to the community and stakeholders, this project will provide multiple positive outcomes for the surrounding and downstream communities, including flood mitigation, water quality and watershed improvement, native wildlife habitat, public health benefits, and opportunities for recreation, environmental education, and stewardship. The residents of historic Hunter Hill have been fully engaged in this project and are enthusiastically supportive.
Thank you. Any comments or comments from my colleagues? Please open the vote, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chair, we need a motion in a second.
Oh, sorry. So motion by Councilmember Lewis, second by Councilmember Boone. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. Item number 3, 23-01018, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Commissioner of the Department of Watershed Management or her designee to execute a consent order with the Environmental Protection Division, Department of Natural Resources of the State of Georgia, retroactively effective on September 30th, 2022, and to authorize payment pursuant to the consent order in the amount of $5,634.59 to resolve permit compliance violations, including unpermitted discharges, affluent permit limit exceedances, and major spills from July 2021 through June 2022 and for other purposes.
Thank you. Mr. Fletcher.
Good morning, Chairman Winston. Good morning, Vice Chair Boone, council members. I'm Quentin Fletcher, Deputy Commissioner for the Office of Water Treatment and Reclamation. The purpose of this legislation is to request authorization to execute the consent order number EPD WP-9291 and make payments which are required for permit compliance violation, including 1 major spill and 2 outfall spills, 2 permit effluent violations at the South River Water Reclamation Center. The Environmental Protection Division has issued the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDS permit number GA0039012, to authorize the city to discharge treated effluent from its facilities in accordance with the effluent limitations, monitoring requirements, and other conditions set forth by the permit. The City of Atlanta owns and operates the R.M. Clayton, Utoy Creek, South River Water Reclamation Centers, remote pumping stations, and the collection system. From the period of July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2022, the city experienced multiple incidents that resulted in non-compliance, including major spills, permit effluent violations. The majority of these spills and effluent permit limit exceedance were due to wet weather events leading to hydraulic overloads in our system. Over the period of July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, the city has experienced an overall decrease in major spills and effluent permit violations. The Department of Watershed Management continues to activate capital improvement projects and capacity relief projects as well. This request is critical as the city must meet the requirements of the NPDS permits issued by the EPD. Under these permits, the cities are required to maintain critical systems to meet discharge limits to protect the public health and the Chattahoochee River water quality. This concludes my remarks. I am happy to address any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
So this is in my district or Jason, Councilmember Winston's district?
Well, the 4 violations that I spoke of is from the South River WRC. They are in Councilmember Winston's district.
Okay, so we share I want to be clear, we share that area so much. And this would clear it up. This is going to fix the issue.
So this is for the consent decree.
Okay.
So we received a consent order from EPD for violations from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, which was a total of 5 violations. 4 of the violations did come from the South River WRC. Councilmember Winston has visited South River several times. We have activated a primary clarifier upgrade project at South River. So that would help stop the violations at South River, yes.
Is I know we had EPD come over and find one of our organization that was actually doing some sediments in South River. Is that affecting this as well?
So those are 2 separate issues,
Okay.
But they're both regulated up under the Environmental Protection Division.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other comments? Approval by Councilmember Boone, second by Lewis. Please open the vote, Mr. Johnson.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable. This takes us to Section J, Resolutions. Item number 4, 23-R3102, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for IFBC 1220246, Greens Ferry Floodplain and stream restoration project with Kowit Athena, a joint venture comprised of Kowit Infrastructure South Company and the Athena Construction Group Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term to commence from the date of a notice to proceed is issued for a period of 18 months in the amount not to exceed $9,229,091.50. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. And Mr. Chair, this item needs to be held in order to receive the IPRO report.
That's correct. Colleagues, it is my understanding that we're still waiting on the IPRO report for this. I'll entertain a motion to hold. Motion by Councilmember Hillis, second by Lewis. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The item is held in committee. Item number 5, 23R3103, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise the second renewal option for sole source agreement FC-10470, incinerator maintenance, repair, and replacement with Industrial Furnace Company Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 1 year, effective February 26, 2023 through February 25th, 2024, in the amount not to exceed $1 million and 0 cents. To enter into the second amendment to the agreement to add additional services to the agreement, all contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Welcome back, Mr. Fletcher.
Good morning again. The purpose of this legislation is to request authorization to execute the second renewal option and amend the agreement FC 10470, annual contract for incinerator maintenance, repair, and replacement service with Industrial Furnace Company Incorporated for a term of 1 year, effective from February 26, 2023 through to February 25th, 2024, and the amount not to exceed $1 million. The R.M. Clayton WRC has 2 permitted incinerators under the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, Environmental Protection Division, and is subject to enforcements. Under these permits, the City of Atlanta, DWM, is required to maintain the systems necessary to meet the subject discharge limit to protect the public health as well as the Chattahoochee River water quality. The current equipment has been failing and difficult to purchase and replace. Both air pollution controls need a complete refurbishment or replacement. Upgrades to the incinerators were requested by the EPD to improve the incinerators' equipment to remain in compliance. The vendor has provided the city with a proposal to address these issues and keep the incinerators in operations with a phased approach. The requested service in this agreement includes full-time furnace maintenance support to maintain and oversee the operation of adding automation to the 2 incinerator units, and that will assist with keeping us in compliance with the Environmental Protection Division. This concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, D.C. Fletcher. So you touched on it briefly about the phased approach, but the city decided quite a long time ago that it wasn't smart to burn trash, so that incinerator is no longer functioning. Georgia Power has decided that they need to move to no longer incinerate coal, but we're still moving in a direction to incinerate at least what used to be feces. So what is the phased approach you spoke about, and when will these be phased out?
So I mentioned in my briefing that with the incinerators, we're now automating them. So we are currently monitoring them on an hourly basis. We will have computer equipment that's going to monitor them continuous. Our goal is to make sure we're capturing every 15-minute intervals. And one reason for keeping the incinerators in service to burn biosolids, to turn it into ash, because that waste stream is cheaper when it goes into the landfill. For ash, we currently pay $43 per ton. If we don't incinerate it, that means that it's more moisture in the biosolids once it goes into the landfill, and we could pay up to $128 per ton to dispose of.
I understand the cost, but, that's, I guess, the cost of doing business, at least what I consider a little more environmentally friendly. So does DWM have any plans moving forward to take down these units or move to a different disposal method?
Our goal is to keep the incinerators in service. We also, with the upgrades, will continue to monitor pollutants. So one of the components that's going to be changed out are air pollution control equipment. And so if we have any exceedance, we can take the units offline. Also at the RM Clayton WRC, we completed a project that installed 2 thermal dryers at the facility. But with the amount of biosolids coming into the facility, we looked at this, and it seems in our best interest to keep all equipment in service.
Kind of getting outside of the scope of this contract, but what you mentioned, ash versus biosolids, are those going to the same landfill? And whether they are or not, where are those landfills?
Yes, it's going to the same landfill. We have a contract with Waste Management. We're currently disposing of our biosolids in the Pine Bluff landfill.
Say that again.
Pine Bluff landfill.
Pine Bluff, okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Hillis, a second by Boone. I did want to ask, long-term, obviously there's no renewal option here. So after February of 2024, what's the long-term plan going forward?
The department is currently working with DOP. Our desire is to enter into another sole source with Industrial Furnace Company. Unfortunately, within the Southeast, you don't have many companies that's able to do this work. IFCO, the Industrial Furnace Company, is a great company, and we've been utilizing them for the last 4 years with no issues.
Okay. And just because you alluded to it earlier, I just wanted to know if you could give a quick update on the South River Water Clarifier project.
So we continue to have progress meetings on a weekly basis. The project is moving forward. At this time, there are no issues. Hopefully, we're going to finish on time. Our goal for the project to be completed is April of 2024, as well as be within budget for the contract.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. We had a motion by Councilmember Hillis, a second by Councilmember Boone. Can you please open the vote, Mr. Johnson?
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
Thank you, D.C. Fletcher.
Item number 623R3104, a resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizing the mayor's designee to enter into a memorandum of understanding and contract item agreement with the State of Georgia Department of Transportation on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for the purpose of adjusting water and sewer infrastructure that conflicts with the Department of Transportation's road diet project along State Route 8 US 278 Donnelly Hollowell Parkway from State Route 280 Hamilton E. Holmes Drive Northwest to City Street 67001 Stiff Street in Fulton County, and the amount not to exceed $60,717.60. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Winston and other committee members. The purpose of this legislation is allow the department to enter into.
Can you please state your name? Sorry for it.
I'm sorry, Reginald Wells, Assistant Commissioner, Watershed Management.
Thank you.
The purpose of this legislation is to allow the department to enter into a contract with the Georgia Department of Transportation to allow us to adjust roughly 16 assets along just shy of a 3-mile project, specifically in Councilman Hillis, District 9, from specifically the intersection of H.E. Holmes and Donnelly and Hollowell, going up to Stiff Street, roughly by Maddox Park. We have a 16-inch water line, various size sanitary sewer lines within the project boundaries. And ultimately, we need this item in order to fund the contract and to ensure all assets are adjusted accordingly and won't remain in conflict with the project.
Thank you. Councilmember Hillis.
Thank you. These projects are usually pretty, just get a motion and a second and they're done with, but this is a project, the GDOT project is a project I've been, asking for and working on my whole time on council, plus some time before I was on council, just because of the safety issues along Hollowell. We've had probably up to 30 pedestrian deaths now in the past 10 to 15 years. So glad GDOT's finally moving this direction and has agreed to do this project. So just make sure our contractor is ready to jump when GDOT says jump, okay?
Yes, sir. So to clarify, the importance of this item, it allow us to be a part of that contract and basically fund so we don't have any impact to the project. So we'll basically be funding all portion of work that's needed. It'll be bidded along with GDOT's contract as a whole, so it'll be a collective effort.
Thank you. Motion approved.
Got a motion by Councilmember Hillis. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Boone. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is
Thank you, guys.
closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. And Mr. Chair, that concludes our legislative items for today.
Thank you. Colleagues, thank you for a fast and efficient meeting. At this time, I'll open it up for any parting words. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.